Now, I think everyone is eagerly waiting to listen to our eminent speaker, Dr. Christine Bartolf, President of Gandhi Information Center from Berlin, Germany. But before listening to Sir, let me briefly introduce Sir to all of you, though Sir is known nationally and internationally. Sir is an educational and political scientist closely collaborating with the Free University of Berlin since November 1993. He is the president of the Gandhi Information Center, which is a research and education for non-violence, a society of education of benefit to the public based in Berlin of Germany. He is a curator of more than 20 exhibitions on non-violent resistance for the Berlin Anti-War Museum. This museum is particularly on Gandhi, Tolstoy, Thoreau, and other eminent personalities. Sir has extensively researched on Mahatma Gandhi's correspondence, which we can see in the one of the books, that is A Breath of the Life, and also has published several books like biographies, monographs, and articles. Sir's resume is like a very lengthy resume. Sir has contributed immensely to Gandhi's ideologies and philosophy. So we are very eagerly waiting to listen to you, sir. Welcome, sir, and kindly address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Shalom Aleichem. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. And Salam Alaikum. International Day of Peace, United Nations. And I hope you can understand me. I go a bit closer. Yeah. In a way, yeah. Is it okay? Can you understand me? Yes. I want to tell you something. I was here in Hyderabad the last time in 2009, invited by Goethe Zentrum, Hyderabad, and I was in the position to give an interview for All India Radio, and I would have liked to play it for you now, but you can find it on our website of the Gandhi Information Center, Research and Education for Nonviolence, a Society for Education. And this is an interview focusing on Hyderabad and peace and Germany. And very interesting is that, the third Nobel Peace Laureate of Germany was a prisoner of Hitler in the concentration camp. And his name, Karl von Ossietzky, he was a political journalist. His wife was born in Hyderabad, Maud Esther Litchfield Woods, Maud Woods. And she was from an Anglo-Indian family. And she suffered because of her husband's internment. There was an international campaign between 1934 and 1936. Their daughter was in Sweden then. I invited their daughter in 1985, the year when I was first in India. And this was a great experience because Rosalinda von Ossietzky-Palm, she told me that her father, her mother, and she herself were speaking about India, and she wanted to become an Indian dancer. She could not become an Indian dancer in exile in Sweden. Instead, she became a telephone psychologist to prevent suicides. And she was a wonderful, warm-hearted person. And her mother was age 8, living in England, joined the suffragette movement of Emmeline Pankhurst for women's rights. And she was a Manchurian nurse in Manchester, a nurse. And she went to Hamburg, taught language, English language and card games, and was active in civil rights and for peace. The husband was comparatively poor. He was just a law secretary. And then both went to Berlin. He became a secretary of the German Peace Society. And they organized the No More War movements after the First World War. It was 1919 to 1924. And he became editor of a weekly magazine, The World Stage. See, World House, World Stage. And so I wanted to repeat what I said in 2009 to you in this interview on India Radio, that they were talking about Gandhi. Karl-Nostietsky praised Gandhi in 1929 explicitly in his World Stage. He found the best words on Gandhi. He said that Gandhi was not a politician in the European sense. He was more. And his words were unique. I want now to refer your attention to the fact that the greatest spirit in the 20th century, the German Gandhi, was married, English-German marriage during these times was not normal. And he was married with a Manchurian nurse with an Anglo-Indian descendants who had been born in Hyderabad. And this is significant because it shows that peace is a cosmopolitan concept. And in case we would not have these, nation states, then the border controls would not prevent us from being in time for planes. And then it would have been easier with a world citizen passport to visit and be in time. So I apologize for being a bit later today. Now I wanted to tell you that Gandhi can be compared as a philosopher, and not academic philosopher, but as a philosopher and thinker. Two great philosophers of Europe, like Erasmus of Rotterdam, who wrote against war in 2 tracts in the 16th century. He was the first humanist in Europe, emancipating from the dogmas of the churches. From Rotterdam, Netherlands. And he wrote a tract, "War is sweet to those who have no experience of it, but the hearts of those who have experienced war tremble greatly on its approach." This is a saying of Pindar of Thebes, and Erasmus created an essay. This was the first essay in European history, before Montaigne and Lavoisier. Lavoisier's Discours de la servitude volontaire was the first precept of the fall of the tyrant by non-violent means, by non-violent non-cooperation. this was extensively quoted and referred to by Leo Tolstoy and through this read by Gandhi. It means Etienne de la Boétie from France, the friend of Montaigne, was the first theoretic of nonviolent resistance. Now, you see, Erasmus of Rotterdam before wrote the first essay, and the first essay in European history was against war. Nowadays, people remember him as a humanist, and students are in international exchange through Erasmus program. But many students do not know about these two first tracts. The other one was the Complaint of Peace. Pax, you know, pax is a Latin word for peace, accuses mankind. It's the first polemic in European literature. So both circle around war and peace and war. And now we were happy to publish the exhibition on Erasmus in the Free University Berlin. So I'm happy to introduce you to this, and as a gesture of appreciation for your invitation, I would like to present this to you as principal. Thank you so much. And this one to great Prasad Napali, because he's really a great friend, not of India, but also of mankind. So I would like to thank you so much for this interaction, this dialogue. And there's another philosopher who is related to Gandhi. It is Immanuel Kant with his Perpetual Peace. This tract, end of the 18th century, was the first vision of World Republic. Not the first vision. I should hesitate, but it was after Abbé de Saint-Pierre a great contribution to the concept of a world federation. And if you ask yourself, what is the context for the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, is precisely this, that Gandhi found clear words for his vision for a world federation without armies. So I would like to quote this to you, and then also tell you a bit about Kant and Erasmus, so that you know the context. That doesn't mean that Gandhi was a Kantian or a follower of Erasmus, but he was, in his thought and philosophy, very close to these. And on the United Nations International Day of Peace, which is a blessing, of course, we shall remember these first theories, philosophies of peace, not only in European history, of course. So let us recollect the precious heritage of peace philosophy in Europe. Almost 300 years ago, Immanuel Kant was born. In 2 years, there will be European-wide celebrations to commemorate this philosopher, whose 1795 tract Perpetual Peace, a philosophical sketch, may serve as a basis for understanding peace philosophy. Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher and one of the central Enlightenment thinkers. Born in Königsberg, which is nowadays Kaliningrad, he was an exponent of the idea that perpetual peace could be secured through universal democracy and international cooperation. This tract is structured in 2 parts. The preliminary articles describe these steps that should be taken immediately or with all deliberate speed. First, No secret treaty of peace shall be held valid in which there is tacitly reserved matter for a future war. I repeat, no secret treaty of peace shall be held valid in which there is tacitly reserved matter for a future war. Second, no independent states, large or small, shall come under the dominion of another state by inheritance, exchange, purchase, or donation. Third, now I would like to highlight this, standing armies shall in time be totally abolished. Fourth, national debts shall not be contracted with a view to the external friction of states. Fifth, no state shall by force interfere with the constitutional government of another state. No state shall during war permit such acts of hostility which would make mutual confidence in the subsequent peace impossible. Such are the employment of assassins, poisoners, breach of capitulation, and incitement to treason in the opposing state. And he added, Immanuel Kant, K-A-N-T, this philosopher from Germany, added 3 definitive articles which would provide not merely a cessation of hostilities, but a foundation on which to build a peace. First, the civil constitution of each state shall be republican. Second, the law of nations shall be founded on a federation of free states. And third, the rights of men as citizens of the world shall be limited to the conditions of universal hospitality. Nowadays, it should be also a right of asylum for refugees, a guaranteed right. There should be a world passport for everyone, like Fridtjof Nansen perceived. But this passport should be held in the same esteem as national passports. But this was not the time of Kant then. Now I refer to the second point, Federation of Free States, because this word republic or world federation was the vision which was shared by Mahatma Gandhi in 1942. At the peak of the Second World War, Gandhi expressed his vision for India and the world. I try to speak in the microphone in such a way that you listen, please, to each word of this. If I can get freedom for India now through non-violent means, power of non-violence is firmly established, empire idea dissolves, and world state takes its place, in which all the states of the world are free and equal. No state has its military. There may be a world police to keep order in the absence of universal belief in non-violence. This Gandhi wrote in a letter to Morris Friedman from Sevagram, July 28, 1942. And you find this in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi in the Gandhi Heritage Portal, accessible for everyone, every student. And I regard myself as a lifelong student of Gandhi's philosophy, because there are no, experts in such a way that they can claim authorities, but all scholars are adding to each other. Like, so, and 3 years later, the same year, Gandhi wrote in his speech at All India Congress Committee meeting, Mumbai, August 7, 1942, we are aiming at a world federation in which India would be a leading unit. It can come only through non-violence. Disarmament is only possible if you use the matchless weapon of nonviolence. And 3 years later, he confirmed his belief in this concept of a world federation, quote, if it is built on an essentially nonviolent basis. This was in an interview to Ralph Coniston before the end of the Second World War, 1945. But now let us remember that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. shared this vision of a world house, and in his letter from a Birmingham jail, he distinguished between a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, and a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And Gandhi linked his concept of truth with nonviolence, as we know, in his message from Sabarmati, March 30, 1927. God is truth. The way to truth lies through ahimsa, nonviolence. M.K. Gandhi. I would like to add that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in his farewell address after his trip to India in 1959, asked India to unilaterally disarm as an example for the world, because USA, the United States of America, and Soviet Union were not able to do so. They were not willing to do so. To be a model, it's linked with Vinoba Bhave, mentioning Vinoba Bhave after talks with Vinoba Bhave. So you see, Dr. Martin Luther King's message was referring to unilateral disarmament. And you know that those speak about multilateralism, which is essential, and others speak about multipolar world. But nobody speaks about unilateralism as if this is not the way, as if this were not the way. But King pleaded for this, and the proposals to abolish national armies is a proposal which dates back to Immanuel Kant, as we know now. Immanuel Kant had a French precursor, Abbé de Saint-Pierre. He might have been one of the first who proposed an international organization to maintain peace. It should be the United Nations, but as we know, it is not. So there should be a profound reform or a substitute, either or. It's not my decision, but it's urgent. And this practical proposal included ideas like Abbé de Saint-Pierre, an equitable tax system, including a graduated income tax, free public education for women as well as men, state improvement of transportation to further commerce, an international court and League of States in his Projet de Paix Perpétuelle, 1713. It is the project for an eternal peace. So that's maybe the first time that the term eternal peace was created, and Kant used this term in his Perpetual Peace, zum ewigen Frieden in German language. These ideas were the core principles of European Union long before it was created. And this pan-European vision influenced Rousseau, also Voltaire, through him his friend Voltaire's friend Frederick from Prussia, but not sustainably, as we know. And it is just a brief recourse on Europe's first peace theories. Now, the last referring to these booklets with the exhibitions we created in 2017, now published by Free University Berlin, with texts exclusively from Erasmus of Rotterdam against war and of the advantages of peace. I give you some examples. Thank you. I give you some examples, some quotes you find in this booklet. And you can find it online, by the way. Also, you can download it as a PDF file for those who like at the Free University Berlin's website. So, all honor to those who have used their talents or wisdom for the prevention of war and the establishment of concord. In short, to the man who has directed all his efforts not to procuring the greatest force of fighting men and engines of war, but to ensuring that there shall be no need of them. And now, the majority of the common people loathe war and pray for peace. Only a handful of individuals whose evil joys depend on general misery desire war. Whether it is right or not for their wickedness to prevail over the will of all honest men is for you yourselves to judge. And now the advantages of peace. In times of peace, it is just as if a fresh spring sun has begun to shine on human affairs. Fields are cultivated, gardens turn green, flocks graze contentedly, farms are established and towns rise, fallen buildings are restored, others ornamented and enlarged, wealth increases, pleasures are nurtured, law is in repute, statecraft flourishes, religion is fervent, justice reigns, goodwill prevails, artisans practice their crafts with skill, the earnings of the poor are greater, and the opulence of the rich more splendid. The study of the most noble subject thrives. Youth is educated, old age enjoys the peaceful leisure, girls are happily married. You know, Erasmus himself was becoming a monk to have access to the old scriptures, to translate them. It was a kind of non-violent strategy to gain knowledge. That was Erasmus. He was not, a dogmatist like Luther. And Stefan Zweig, the great writer, compared these two, Erasmus and Luther. But this Erasmus, you find a house commemoration in Brussels, in Antwerp, in Anderlecht, and references in Freiburg, in Germany. This Erasmus of Rotterdam, in his two tracts, paved the way for peace philosophy. And the English titles of these texts are in the collected works of Erasmus: A Complaint of Peace, Spurned and Rejected by the Whole World. Or, the other one, War is a Treat for Those Who Have Not Tried It. Of course, those who have experienced it tremble. It's amazing. And two more examples of Erasmus' wisdom. Finally, the greatest element in peace is a heartfelt desire for it. Those who truly have peace at heart snatch at every opportunity for it. They ignore or remove the obstacles in the way and put up with a lot, so long as this greatest of blessings is unimpaired. And Erasmus remembers the ancient prophets' history, which Gandhi referred frequently, for example, Daniel. And we should also do so like Erasmus, for example, Isaiah. Think of the mighty prophet Isaiah, when he was inspired by the divine spirit and prophesied that Christ would come to unite the world, did he promise a tyrant, a sacker of cities, a warrior, a conqueror? He did not. What then did he promise? A prince of peace. Isaiah wished it to be understood that his prince was the best of all princes. And so he named him after that quality which he judged to be best. Hence it is, I believe, that the word humane is generally applied to anything to do with mutual goodwill. Man has also the capacity for tears, proof of a disposition which is readily persuaded, so that if some difference has arisen and a cloud has overcast the clear sky of friendship, a reconciliation can easily be achieved. Now take a look at all the reasons nature has provided for concord. It's not irony, it's not coincidence that Concord is the name of the city of transcendentalists in the United States of America. The great legacy of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, who in 1907 was paraphrased by Gandhi briefly, shortly before he invented the term satyagraha in January 2008. And this was a paraphrase of, translation of, on the duty of civil disobedience. And it was also called, it is a resistance to government. Duty to resist the government, civil disobedience, to break a law, you see. And fearlessly be prepared to take the consequences with all the hardship, paying fines, going to prison, which is a curse, as we know. But this civil disobedience concept of Henry David Thoreau, the nonviolent non-cooperation principle of Leo Tolstoy, and the fearlessness of Socrates, the father of all philosophers, a witness of truth, was prepared to take poison because he was sticking to truth and accusing his contemporaries to speak untruth, to do injustice. Socrates, martyr of truth, and Gandhi's role model for satyagraha, which you find in Indian opinion in 1908, after he created this term. Before he went to the economic aspects, John Ruskin, until this last, which doesn't mean anything else than guaranteed minimum income for everyone, each and everyone, male and female, young and old. Derived from the understanding of the New Testament, the parable of the workers in the vineyard, John Ruskin's unto this last. That was the second stage. And then in Swaraj. You find a wonderful transcontinental, transcultural, transnational, transphilosophical, and even transreligious understanding of the key message of humanity, which is not just peace, but also justice and freedom, and human dignity. And this is opposing any forms of discrimination. And this means end of all kinds of discrimination. You know, I can add something. In the US Constitution, this was firmly codified. And the last discrimination which was banned by the US Constitution was the discrimination of sex, of woman and man in this, and of course, other understandings of gender. You understand, this is amazing. Can you imagine this? A long way to go, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights should be the constitution of a world federation. So this is in a nutshell what I can expose in other lectures during the next 4 weeks and go more in depth then. But today I wanted to honor the invitation to this traditional university, which is famous beyond India. It is an honor to be here and to say connect the continents. Yeah, you understand somehow after some adventurous trip, and so it's a wonderful continuation of an exciting day for me, and your presence is a great solace in dark times. So, you know, one last thought. These transcendentalists in US America, they were organizing, some of them, like Bronx and Alcott, were organizing settlements, you know, farms, cooperative settlements. So, and they were all inspired by early 19th century utopian socialists, which were discussed by John Stuart Mill. And when Martin Luther King rejected utilitarianism, because it was not the philosophy which satisfied him, but it was the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, then he knew why he chose John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism, because John Stuart Mill had the plan to write 4 chapters on socialism, did not finish this, and he highlighted Fourier's concept because of some reasons, but these ideas, these concepts were inspiration for alternative ways of understanding property, capital, and community. And these concepts had followers all over the world, among them the Petrashevtsi in Russia, which inspired Dostoevsky, by the way. And not to mention the Doukhobors, who were supported by Tolstoy, the vegetarians and pacifists. If this ethics is the core of the understanding of Gandhi, universal ethics, it doesn't mean to create a new oppression, but to offer the way of universal ethics, not in a social or economic or political or educational contexts. Then Gandhi will become more and more relevant. And after the International Day of Nonviolence, 2007, which was a collaboration of the government of South Africa and India. And I could participate in this pioneering conference as a guest in New Delhi. I think now nonviolence is the universal norm at the United Nations, the first permanent institution of nonviolence in the United Nations system. Before it was just 1 year of nonviolence, 2000, 1 decade, but 2007 was the turning point and it was the activity of a foreign minister of India then, who brought about a unanimous decision of the United Nations General Assembly. It was a cultural turning point. And this man I had met some years before as a consulate, as far as I remember. So I want to tell you that this is a great chance for us to enter into a new dialogue. And I'm so grateful for all these inspirations of Gandhi King Foundation and the World House Project and you know, the Thorough Society, the wonderful publications about Tolstoy and Gandhi in India and in Russia, and also the Guild of St. George, Ruskin Society, and not to mention Kant, friends of Immanuel Kant, etc. There are so many precious contributions, not just in the frame of social philosophy, but also in literature. If we look back to the precious heritage, the messages of Rabindranath Tagore, the messenger of India between the wars and afterwards, his great Shantiniketan oasis for peace. It's another reference which I could not highlight today, but I hope that you have an impression of the challenge, and we students of, lifelong students of this philosophy should be non-conformists and our main source are the texts, the original texts, you know, the original text and the precious examples of practical experience and there are some, you say, affinity groups I was participating in bringing about change for ecology and peace, and also for tearing down the wall. And all this is a constant, ongoing challenge. It's not just an historical past, but it should be present and future. And this is independent, but it's linked to the United Nations. Independent from the United Nations, but linked with the cultural values which are distributed from New York and Geneva and Vienna and other places. But, you know, we should really be a bit more speedy to bring about the changes. And I think because of the dark history of Nazi tyranny in Germany, but also because of the famous role models. Karl von Ossietzky is not famous, but Mahatma Gandhi is worldwide famous. And that's the reason why India has a central task, central role in bringing about a change of the, let me say, United Nations system to a world federation where wars will never be possible again. But this depends on the representatives of India, the various representatives of India, not only in the United Nations. So I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that we enter to a very fruitful dialogue in the days and weeks to come. Thank you.